Hey guys, Chris from the DC Comics Squadcast here. It is officially the 1 year anniversary of Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice being released, and at least my time is midnight, 10 after. I'm a little late. And I just wanted to kind of talk about the movie. It's been a crazy year. If you follow any kind of social media having to do with the movies, it's still being talked about to this day. Now, whether or not you like the movie is one thing, but it's hard to deny that it is kind of a cultural phenomenon, and love it or hate it, people like talking about it or complaining about it or arguing and whatever. People have fun with it as they will. I love the movie. I really do. But it didn't start out that way. It was a little bit of a process, and I guess that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, and I would love to talk to other people about this. I just thought it would be fun for our network to throw this out there. I haven't put out a video in a while. I've made videos, but things have gone wrong here and there. It might be audio problems or video glitches or whatever that would happen, and I just ended up not posting them. And now I work in the tax business, and so it's just been crazy. So I'm taking this Friday night to just kind of talk about BvS because, like I said, I loved it, and it was a little bit of a journey, I guess, mentally, if you want to call it that. I feel like I'm talking about like Scientology or some weird religion or something, but so for me, my wife and I and my sister and my sister-in-law and a couple of our best friends, we went on this random pre-spring break vacation, and we went down to the beach, and we got there at 2 in the morning of this. I guess the Saturday is what it technically was that we actually went and saw it, but we got there, went to bed, woke up the next morning, me and my buddy, we got up, and the girls all stayed behind, of course, and so we got up, we went to this movie theater that was, the closest one was like 30 minutes away, so we get there, and it's like a ghost town. Now granted, this is like a vacation town, like beach town, and it's like not even spring break weather. It's cold outside, and so it's just kind of weird. We walk in the theater, literally no one there. There's one worker, and even she seemed confused. And so we go into this movie, and she's like, well, I'm just going to let you know, I didn't really like it. And then it starts getting good at the end, and I liked that. But I knew what the reviews were. I try not to let my opinions hinge off of reviews or anything that I've heard. I try to go in with an open mind. A buddy of mine is like, he likes to stick to kind of like, he has reviewers that he trusts, and he kind of goes with their word, and he'll watch the movie and formulate an opinion there, but he generally agrees with these reviewers, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you have reviewers that you like and you feel like your opinion lines up, whatever. It is what it is, to each their own. I'm not that way, but we went and saw the movie, and when we walked in the theater, there was literally no one in there. And to me, I was just kind of like, oh, this is kind of a bummer, but whatever. I don't care. I love seeing movies by myself with no one else in the theater, so whatever. It was just odd being opening day, and I think I even posted on Twitter. If you feel like scrolling back on my Twitter page, I think I posted a video being like, well, here we are, and there's no one here. But, excuse me. So anyway, the movie eventually, the theater fills up. People are in there. It is a full theater by the time the previews are going and the movie's about to start. And so we watched the movie, and when we got out, it was neither one of us said a word. We walked back to the car, through the parking lot, whatever. We get in the car and we're driving, and my buddy looks at me and he's like, well, Rimmer, what'd you think? And I was just kind of like, I don't know. I don't know what I thought. There were times in the movie where I was like, man, this is awesome. Like, this is incredible. This is great. But something about the movie, something in there kind of, I don't know what I was expecting. It just kind of threw me off. And I think what it was, now that we have the Ultimate Edition, I think it was the pacing was very fast. It's very fast paced, and they throw a lot of information at you. And in a very, it's a long movie still, but they throw it at you really quickly. And I think that's what kind of threw me off, is even though I didn't think it would be like a typical comic book movie or play out like a Marvel movie would, I guess part of me still expected it to sort of be that because that's what I was used to. And so when it wasn't that, it was jarring. And it is a jarring movie. Even the Ultimate Edition, which is flows a lot better, it can be jarring because it's not, it does take itself very seriously. It takes the story very seriously. It has a very thematic vibe and tone to it, which I love now. But anyway, so we're talking about this movie, but it's just, he doesn't like the movie. Still to this day, he'll recognize things that he thinks are done really well, but for the most part, he just doesn't like the movie. But it was just so strange, and it affected me not physically, but it affected me mentally the rest of the day, because later that night, my wife and I, everybody was kind of all doing their own thing around the house that we had rented, and my wife and I were out in the hot tub. And she, I feel like this is gonna be like about a serious situation, but it's about a movie. And she's like, "Hey, are you okay? Like, you seem bummed. Like, you just went and saw a new Batman movie that you're really excited about, and you haven't said a word about it. So something must be terribly wrong." And she's like, "Are you just sad because you didn't like the movie?" And I was like, "Well, I'm bummed. I am. I don't really know what about. It's not that even that I'm bummed. And it's not that I didn't like the movie. So anyway, this conversation went from us in the hot tub, and I ended up basically going story beat by story beat through the entire movie, describing what happened in the movie. And as I was having this conversation with her, and she was interested, she wanted to know what happened in the movie. And she doesn't care about spoilers and stuff like that. She's pretty easygoing when it comes to that. So she wanted me to tell her what happened. And as I was talking through the movie with her, that's when I started realizing, okay, no, this was awesome. No, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That's, okay, all the pieces are coming together. And by the time we got to, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the movie and you're watching this, you are out of your mind. So watch the movie before you continue this video if you haven't, which is insane for me to think of. But by the time we got to the Doomsday battle and the death of Superman thing, and it's the part where, like, he looks at Lois and the music starts and he's like, "I love you." And when I got to that, she's crying. And I cried that's the thing, is I cried in the movie theater when it happened. I was tearing up, like, majorly. And so for a movie to affect me that way and me to walk away being like, I don't know how I felt about the movie, it's insane now that I think about it. Of course I loved it. I just didn't know how to process all this information, I guess. But she's crying. We're sitting there in the hot tub. She's crying over a movie she hasn't seen yet. And I'm going to start tearing up talking about the death of Superman. And by the time we're done with this conversation, I'm like, no, I think I love this movie. I think I absolutely love it. Well, we were there for a whole week after that, and I didn't get a chance to go see it again, but we got back in town on my birthday. And I went by myself that morning, and I watched it again. And after all of that, and of course I was reading online, and I found Sam Otten's podcast. I think it was that soon. I want to say, I might be getting my timelines mixed up, but I feel like I found his podcast like very shortly after the movie came out, and he was already going into the thematic details and stuff, and it was very shortly after that I found the Suicide Squadcast. So if it wasn't for Batman v Superman, I wouldn't have gone looking for these things, and I wouldn't have found Scott and Tim, and I wouldn't be here part of this podcast network. So it's crazy how this movie has affected me in my life and the things that I do now in my schedule, and I love it. It's so awesome. But anyway, I went and saw this movie on my birthday. And by myself in the theater, and at the end of the movie, I remember I sat there for a while by myself after the credits were rolling, and I was just like, I love this movie. And it just one of those things that was hitting me as the movie was playing again. And that was the second of 4 viewings. I saw that movie 2 more times by myself in the theater. No, I'm sorry, 1 more time, and then a final, like the 4th time with my wife and her sister and a good buddy of mine who saw the movie and loved it. And by the way, they're pretty, like, they're not very, like, Marvel or DC sided, my wife and her sister, at all. They're not into, like, comics and all this stuff. And they watched the movie, and from just a general audience point of view. They didn't understand what all the hate was about. They didn't understand why people were confused about the story. They even understood on their first viewing, maybe because I had talked about it, but I don't know. They understood the storyline perfectly. They were not confused at all when they walked out of the movie. Because I was asking them questions about, like, well, what did you think about Lex? Why was he doing what? And they were able to talk about it clearly, and they got it. So it's just crazy to think about maybe being into the comics so much and being into the storylines for a lot of people can be a little bit blinding, as opposed to just going in with an open mind and just see. I don't know. It's interesting because there are people that just didn't understand why there was so much hate and why there was so much backlash. They just enjoyed the movie. And but there were a lot of people that didn't, and that is okay. If it's not your bag, that's totally fine. But anyway, so that was kind of the whole process. And every time I saw the movie, I fell in love with it even more. And it just became this thing. And before the movie even came out, they had announced the Ultimate Edition with this 30 minutes of extra footage. And I think the R rating came out soon after that announcement. And that even got me more excited, because then there were things in the movie that I was like, okay, this could be expanded on easily. And one of the big things for me that I loved was having Clark, the journalist, going to Gotham City and investigating as a journalist. And I feel like that's something we've never really gotten, is the Clark Kent journalist aspect. And I love that so much. As brief as it still is in the Ultimate Edition, the fact that they dug into it at all is great. All of that stuff is great. Everything they added to me, for the most part, was great. Some of the Wallace dialogue was kind of cheesy, but I don't care. Whatever. It's a movie. No movie doesn't have any cheese. It is what it is. But I love it. It is my favorite movie. Some people think I'm crazy. Some people agree with me that I know. But it's my favorite movie. And not even just comic book movie. It's my favorite movie. At least as of right now. Logan had a pretty good competition there. I loved that movie. I saw that twice. And Logan really hit me, but it had a lot of the same emotional vibe as BvS, and so I think that kind of goes together. But people loved Logan, and they had a lot of backlash with BvS, so it's interesting. People have theories and whatever of why, and I have my own, but it doesn't matter. Movies are movies. If you like them, you like them. Anyway, I'm rambling right now, but I'm just very excited because it's been a year since this movie came out, and us and the Squadcast family, we've been talking here and there on Twitter, and me and Jordan talk about it, and it's just exciting because now, on what is technically now, it is the 25th, it's Saturday, we're getting a Justice League trailer later this afternoon, this evening. I don't know what time we're getting, but we've been getting we've been getting these teasers, and that's very exciting. I love what I'm seeing, and it's very exciting year because, lest we forget, Wonder Woman comes out next, and I am so excited for that. That last trailer they put out really just got me amped and very, very excited. I think that's going to be great. From what I'm seeing, it looks fantastic. It looks like what a Wonder Woman movie should look like, and I feel like the characters in the trailer, at least, are portraying the characters the way they ought to be. For the story that they're telling. So I'm very excited, and I feel like I kind of went off on some tangents, but I just wanted to talk about my experience with BvS and how much I love the movie. And it brought me here, and not only did it bring me here, that movie it got me going back to the comic book store to buy comics. Now, I've talked about it before a little bit here and there, but I'm a musician, and I've been touring since I was 15 years old. And so when I was a kid, I bought comics, but it wasn't necessarily like, okay, I need this entire story arc, and I need all of this continuity to flow. For me, it was just, I would go, when I would see comic books at an antique store, or the comic book store that I would go to, I wasn't necessarily going to follow a storyline. I was just buying up comics that had cool covers with characters that I liked. And if I would pick up a book that was in the middle of some crazy story, and I didn't have the one before to the one after it, for me, my imagination would just go wild of what did come before, and I would kind of go nuts thinking about, what came after, and it was just like, I didn't really care about continuity as much as I do now, which, to a fault maybe, but anyway, touring in a band, if you're stuck in a van, you can't really store a shitload. You can't really store a whole bunch of comics in a van without them getting destroyed. I tried it. Trust me, it's very hard. Even when you bag and board them, people want to read them, and I want people to read them, but sometimes they get mistreated and blah, 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 whatever. Who cares? But anyway, wasn't able to collect comics for a very, very long time. I would keep up via the internet with some of the storylines that were going on, but I was never really... I tried a couple of digital comics. It was just one of those things. Well, for a long time, iPhones didn't exist, and neither did tablets. I was using a little Nokia, brick phone. And the digital comic era wasn't mobile-friendly until really kind of recently, sort of. And so anyway, that wasn't much of an option, but you could get on the internet and download comics, but it was one of those things, I loved going to the comic book shop, and I loved finding the books. But it was when I started following storylines on the internet, was kind of when I started actually caring about continuity. And anyway, Man of Steel, when that came out, that really got me excited about Superman. I loved that movie. I loved the tone of it. I loved the idea that they were addressing his humanity and taking it seriously, and it wasn't all smiles and jokes and hokey after, okay, you've presented this potentially really cool part of your character that's a very deep human aspect, but then he smiles and whatever. And it's like the old Christopher Reeve movies for what they are, and I enjoyed them so much when I was a kid, and they have their very important place in history of not just comic book movies, but movies in general. But, for me and my likings, Man of Steel really touched on a lot of the stuff that I liked, because a lot of people will say that that's not my Superman. My Superman is all smiles and he's saving cats out of trees, but whatever that version of Superman is, I can't necessarily find that when I'm digging through comics, because I find struggle when I'm looking for Superman in the comics. When I see him, I see struggle. I see positive and negative reaction from the world around him. I see having to deal with certain situations, what is the right decision here? So that was when he showed up in Man of Steel, and you have this journey becoming the hero, and that journey continues through BvS, and I think when we get to Justice League, that's when we're going to see him actually become that hero, which to me is genius. Yes, do it through 3 movies. Yes, build this journey up for this character to become this hero. That's great. That's an awesome idea. Unfortunately, we as a race, humans, are very impatient in this day and age. But anyway, that's the Superman that I saw in comic books. And so for me, it was perfect. I connected. I'm like, well, yeah, this is Superman. Whenever he killed Zod at the end, it was a very hard decision he had to make, and he audibly grieves, which you didn't see in the Christopher Reeve movie. Not that there's anything wrong with that. For the time, for the movie that they were making, it is what it is. That's what it's supposed to be, and that's great. But that's the Superman I wanted to see. So leading into BvS was just kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for me. And when I got back in town, we have stopped traveling as of late for the most part, as bands and stuff that I'm in. So I was like, I've got an empty room upstairs that we're using kind of as a studio. That's my new comic book room. So I went to my local comic book store, which is called Excalibur, and I just started buying stuff. I didn't even know what was going on outside of, I knew it was the new 52, but I didn't know what the storylines were. I was just like, I'll take this and this and this and this and this, realized where I needed to be, and went back and bought a bunch of trades. And so I'm still catching up on a lot of these trades back here, but that was, and so BvS not only got me part of the Suicide Squadcast network family of fellas, but it also got me back into actively following comics. And so now we're in Rebirth, and I'm having a great time with Rebirth and talking about Jordan every week. And it's just crazy. And I think about how I really would not be right here doing what I'm doing, posting this video on this channel, if it wasn't for that movie kind of kicking my ass into gear and saying, hey, you love these characters, you love the legacy, and you're very excited about this and where it's coming from. Why don't you get back into comics? You don't have an excuse not to now. You're not doing anything. You are home and you have a place to store them. Go do it. So I did, and that's been a year ago, and here we are. So anyway, this is pointless, I guess, other than just me wanting to talk about it. But that's my experience, and I would love to talk to anyone who may be watching about it. So leave a comment or find me on Twitter at either the DC Comics Squadcast or my personal, which is RevRim, REVRIM. And let's talk about it. I love the movie, even if you don't like it. You know, I'm always down to talk DC and Rebirth and New 52. I'm actually starting a journey back through the New 52. So I'm kind of trying to catch up with the stuff that I bought and haven't been able to read yet, and now going in chronological order. But it's going to be fun. I'm excited to get back into that. But anyway, happy 1-year anniversary, Batman v Superman. And I'm hoping that we can all kind of just stay excited about DC, whether it's the movies or the comics or both, or the TV shows and everything, every facet of it. I love the legacy and I love the characters that they're setting up. And it's no shade towards Marvel, but it's just what I've always connected with. So anyway, I'm going to stop rambling now. The video is long enough as is. And guys, thanks again. Thank you so much for the support. Thanks for watching. Let's talk DC. And as Tim and Scott will always say, keep reading DC. Thank you guys very much. Please have a good night. And, you know, if you feel it in your heart, go watch BvS tonight. Ain't gonna hurt nothing. All it'll do is maybe make you cry at the end. Maybe make your heart flutter a little. Who knows? Anyway, good night, guys. We'll see you later.